For Tendo, getting any kind of reaction from Ushijima that wasn't just a raise of his eyebrows was something to celebrate. Not that he minded. His boyfriend was just like that, and he was already used to it. Besides, it made him appreciate the occasional big smile on Ushijima's face all the more. Which didn't mean he wouldn't like Ushijima to show a bit more of his emotions from time to time. It was fascinating to see the usually so stoic face twisted by some emotion, and Tendo took it as a personal challenge to always get at least one strong emotion from his boyfriend when they met. His last attempt was the sad horror he found somewhere in the deep pit of the internet, with reviews saying it's one of the scariest movies the people had ever seen, which was exactly what he was looking for. Now, he didn't forget about Ushijima's fear of horror stuff. The memory of his boyfriend basically running from the apartment they shared back then and sitting on the stairs shaking was still engraved into his memory, and he definitely didn't want to repeat that. Everything had its limits, and Tendo definitely didn't want to cause Ushijima another trauma. But he supposed since he was going to be by his side, it should be alright. And it was. A bit too alright for his taste. For the whole movie, Ushijima barely flinched, even with the more violent jump scares. And Tendo was grumpy. This big doofus. If he at least jumped or let out some sound. But no, he has to be stone-faced the whole time. Sotore? He looked up, finding Ushijima looking at him from the other side of the table with a tilted head, and for now forgotten half-eaten breakfast in front of him. Huh? You seem a bit more quiet today than usual. Are you feeling well? Tendo huffed and pushed the already empty plate away from him. Yeah, don't worry. I just didn't sleep that well today. He paused when something akin to guilt, an expression he definitely wasn't used to seeing, flashed over Ushijima's face. Oh, I'm sorry, was I tossing too much today? You should have said something. I would have gone to sleep elsewhere. Tendo furrowed his brow. He was lying when he said he wasn't sleeping well. In fact, he slept better than before since he had the big warm body pressed against him. But it seemed like Ushijima was the one having trouble sleeping. Now that he mentioned it, Tendo noticed how tired his boyfriend's eyes were, the dark circles under them definitely bigger than yesterday. How could he be so preoccupied with his grumpiness he didn't even notice? He reached for Ushijima's hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. No, that's not your fault, really. I think I was just too hot at night, so it was more difficult to fall asleep, you know? Ushijima blinked a few times, apparently thinking hard about something. Tendo held his hand, keeping his gaze at his boyfriend. He didn't like this in the slightest. What if he really scared Ushijima with the movie and he couldn't sleep because of it now? Ushijima might have had a play break right now, hence why he arrived in Paris for a bit longer visit than usual. But he was still an athlete and needed to regenerate after his regular exercises. And now his peaceful sleep was apparently taken away from him. Should I move to the couch then? Tendo snapped out of his thoughts, the confused crease on his forehead deepening. Why do you want to move out of the bed so much? Because I don't want to interfere with your sleep. What does that even mean? He reached over the table and took Ushijima's face in his palms, worries spiking in his chest even more. Did something happen that is taking sleep away from you? You can tell me. I won't laugh or anything, I swear. For a moment, Ushijima stilled, his lips parting as if he wanted to say something. But then the moment disappeared, and he just shook his head and covered one of Tendo's hands with his giant palm. It's nothing. Perhaps I was overly hot too. You are always hot, my dear. A tiny, barely visible smile curled up Ushijima's mouth, but Tendo didn't miss the tense lines around his eyes. He gave Ushijima's cheeks a light tap and sat back to take hold of his hand again before starting on with his usual ranting about everything that came to his mind like he did every morning. Ushijima listened intently, as always, sometimes adding a short nod or soft grunt of agreement. The atmosphere eased up a bit, but Tendo knew for sure the tension in Ushijima's shoulders was much more than piled up exhaustion from exercise. He had no idea what was happening, but for the rest of the day, he kept a close eye on his boyfriend, trying to make sense of that quiet gnawing feeling in the back of his head that told him something was really wrong. He wasn't sure what exactly woke him up that night. There was no sound from outside or inside the flat, nor did he have a bad dream. He only knew he found himself half awake in the middle of the night, the only thing on his mind being a feeling settled in the back of his head, wrapping around his spine like a snake as he listened to the complete silence of the flat. Wait, silence? Immediately he was fully awake, his heart skipping a beat. There was never a complete silence when Ushijima was present. The soft snoring Tendo was already used to accompanying his sleep. But not this time. He swiftly turned around, some little fear leaving his chest when he found his boyfriend's large form next to him in the bed. He was a bit far away from him for Tendo's liking, but he was there. However, the relief didn't last long as he realized there still wasn't any sound coming from Ushijima. Not even his breathing was heard. His heartbeat speeding up in panic, he leaned over the man's shoulder, finding his eyes wide open and staring into the wall. Toshi? Yet Ushijima's olive eyes only focused and met Tendo's gaze after Tendo squeezed his arm rather hard. Satoru. His hands trembling slightly, Tendo breathed a sigh of relief and wrapped his arms around his boyfriend. Oh, thank God. I thought you... His voice got stuck in his throat, just now making him realize how scared he really was. He clenched his hand around Ushijima's bicep and turned him to his back so he could see his face better. What's going on? Why can't you sleep? We talked about it, Satoru. It's not... Tendo clenched his jaw, a mix of emotions he didn't even have a name for swirling in his chest, making it difficult to breathe and focus. It's not nothing. You were just lying here and barely breathing. I was scared you died on me or something. Is it the movie? Are you having nightmares because of it? I'm sorry, I shouldn't have made you watch it. I know you hate horror stuff and I still made you watch it. I'm sorry. He yelped when Ushijima wrapped his arms around him and pulled him down on his chest, silencing his words. He clutched Ushijima's t-shirt in his hand, his own voice sounding choked to him when he spoke again. What's going on? Please tell me, I'm worried. He felt his boyfriend's hands rubbing his back, the soft humming resonating next to his ear. It's not the movie. Then what is it? Ushijima sighed, his arms around Tendo tightening. I don't know. I never really remember what the nightmares are about. I just know it started about a week ago and I'm afraid to close my eyes afterwards. He looked down, his eyes vulnerable and sincere. I'm sorry I woke you up. Tendo huffed in disbelief and lightly smacked his shoulder. That's not what I'm upset about you. Why didn't you tell me? You wouldn't be able to do anything about it anyway. But I could give you some support or something. And I wouldn't have to wake up thinking you suddenly died. Ushijima hummed quietly and pulled him up to press a small kiss on his forehead. You're right. I'm sorry. I will tell you everything from now on, I promise. Tendo grumbled, but pushed himself a bit higher to get an actual kiss before laying his head on the muscled chest. I'm glad we understand each other. He wrapped his arms around Ushijima's middle, all annoyance he might have felt dissipating, leaving only a protective fire igniting in his chest. Try to sleep, alright? I will protect you against all nightmares. I don't think that's possible. Hey, I'm trying to be supportive here. There was a beat of silence, and then Ushijima relaxed, gently squeezing Tendo's side. Thank you, dear. Atsumu, ever the lazy one to think of how to do challenges, decided to settle for an easy solution to the whole thing. Just do jump scare and hope for the best. Since Sakusa never showed any distaste for scary things, he was quite sure his boyfriend wouldn't be too mad about a little scare. Perhaps he was setting himself up for a few hours of silent treatment, but that was a sacrifice he was willing to make in order to see Sakusa lose his composure. Sakusa, being the always cold on the outside kind of guy, didn't let his mask drop too often in front of people. Even after they got together, it still took a long time before Atsumu was able to convince his boyfriend he would never use his emotions against him. Still, despite now knowing Sakusa was a soft soul beneath all the grumpiness, he was not an easy nut to crack, even after more than 4 years, and Atsumu was welcoming any opportunity to get him to lose the scowl almost permanently settled on his face. His goal, making Sakusa squeal, was set, and he had the best thing to achieve it. Don't you even think about it. Atsumu snapped out of his thoughts and raised his eyes to Sakusa sitting next to him on the couch. His eyes narrowed. He tilted his head. What are you even talking about, Tommy? I'm not doing anything. Now, but you are thinking about doing something stupid, so don't. Atsumu gasped, holding his palm over his heart. You wound me, Omi! When did anything I did turn out stupid? Sakusa raised his eyebrows. Quite often, actually. Do you want a list? I have one. Starts with high school and ends with that prank you did on Inunaki yesterday. That was funny, mind you, and the main brain behind it was Bokun. I just went along. He threw his own scorching glare at Sakusa. How can you even tell I'm planning something anyway? For all you know, I could be thinking about what to get for dinner. Nah, you have that face of yours when you think of something stupid. What does that even mean? Sakusa rolled his eyes and closed the book he was reading, giving Atsumu's legs settled on his lap a light squeeze. Don't forget I've known you for years now. I know all your expressions and what they mean even before you open your mouth. Atsumu paused, a small smile spreading over his lips. He sat up and nuzzled his nose into the crook of Sakusa's neck, earning a soft hum and a gentle pat of his hair in return. I did not know you were studying me for so long. It's a bit creepy if I'm being honest, but I will forgive you since you are so cute. He could feel Sakusa blushing. Well, it was mostly a thing of necessity. I was keeping track of how you reacted when I was near or did something around you to know if you were annoyed or excited to talk with someone else so I wouldn't bother you. Wait, you did all this since high school? You wanted to approach me since high school? Well, yeah. Why didn't you? I thought you weren't interested in talking with me. You were always hanging around in the corner somewhere and glaring at everyone. I thought you just hated everything around you. It's just how my face is. And you always seem to be so excited to spend all your time with your captain and Ojiro-san, so I didn't want to ruin it for you. Atsumu could just stare at his boyfriend for a long moment, unable to form a coherent sentence that would summarize his utter shock after hearing Sakusa's words. He never really thought about it that way. He just got used to seeing Sakusa hanging behind somewhere, a steady presence around him during tournaments and later in their early first year in Jackals. For how long he'd thought Sakusa hated his guts, and when it turned out it wasn't true, he completely forgot about their time in high school and tournaments. Guilty, he wrapped his arms around Sakusa's neck and snuggled close. I'm sorry. I didn't know you were interested for so long. Sakusa sighed but returned the embrace after a short moment of hesitation, bringing Atsumu even closer to him. It's fine. It didn't change much in the end, right? We ended up together anyway. Yeah, but we could be all lovey-dovey for much longer. And we didn't have to go through that awkward time when we just circled around each other. Maybe it's better this way. Who knows? Maybe if we got together during high school, we wouldn't be together now. We were immature back then. Well, mainly you. How dare you? Quiet rumble of chuckle resonated through Sakusa's chest, tingling on Atsumu's skin and in his ears. He made a mental note to make Sakusa chuckle more often, the deep sound raising his serotonin level more than a sight of food. He decided to let Sakusa off the hook for now and curled on his lap like an overgrown cat. Challenge can wait for now. I will do it in the evening. When he thought about it, the evening was better for scaring others anyway. Light was counterproductive. He thought about fetching those fake plastic roaches he unintentionally scared Sakusa with last year, but then decided against it. He didn't want to deal with Grumpy Sakusa when they were supposed to go to sleep soon. And so he waited for the right moment when Sakusa went to take a shower and sneaked into a closet to fetch a Halloween mask they bought with Osamu when they were teens. He completely forgot about it until about 2 months ago when they did a thorough cleaning of their flat and he found it in one of the boxes he brought from their family home when they moved and never really unpacked. He hid in the room closest to the bathroom and pulled the mask on, waiting. This will either end up hilariously or horribly, I suppose. The mask wasn't really scary, just the typical cheap crap you could get in every shop on the street corner. The moment of surprise was more important. He bit his lip and peeked out of the door when he heard the water stop. About 2 minutes later, the bathroom door opened and out came Sakusa, his hair still dripping wet and only a towel wrapped around his hips. Sumo? Atsumu snapped from the stupor the side in front of him threw him into and hid back behind the doorway, counting seconds in his head as the footsteps sounded around the door. Alright, now. He snuck out of the room as quietly as possible and carefully made his way behind Sakusa's back. He stopped right behind him and laid his hand on his shoulder. Boo! Sakusa didn't even flinch and calmly turned around. Here you are. Did you see my lotion? I can't find it. Atsumu stood there flabbergasted, opening and closing his mouth under the mask without a word coming out. Sakusa grimaced and knocked on his forehead. Hello? Anyone home? Atsumu shook off the shock and pulled the mask down. You didn't get scared. Rolling his eyes, Sakusa pushed around him and continued to the bedroom in his search for lotion, with Atsumu close on his heels. Why would I get scared? Well, people usually get scared when you suddenly jump on them. People usually don't have a prankster for a boyfriend. I expect even the unexpected. Atsumu huffed and crossed his arms over his chest, pouting. You really have to ruin my joy every time, do you? Sakusa gave him a cheeky grin and pressed a short kiss to the corner of his mouth. Only sometimes. Besides, I could hear you breathing behind my back. He took the mask from Atsumu and with a disgusted grimace, he threw it into the trash. Don't take a thick rubber over your nose next time if you want to scare me. Atsumu grumbled under his breath, but it took only one softer smile and a few kisses from Sakusa for his pout to disappear. He sighed and flopped on the bed. You win this one. I win every time. I have you. Atsumu blushed, sputtering, but Sakusa was already gone. He giggled and rolled around on the bed. I suppose I won in some things too.